With not a bang, but a whimper, X-Men Dark Phoenix closes out Fox's venerable franchise, an important franchise in comic book film history, but the film struggled in the later stages of the franchise, leaving fans more polarized than ever. Now, we here at Hero Journalism take our journalistic commitment seriously to challenge the tough and weighty issues of the day, so it's with all of this in mind that we ask the question, does Simon Kinberg want to destroy your childhood? We're taking a look, and that's coming up next. But spoilers, yes, he wants to destroy your childhood. There's a term in Hollywood, well, I suppose it pops up everywhere nowadays, called failing upwards. It's when someone kind of gets into the system, and despite the fact that they keep working on projects that don't do well, they keep being rewarded with more positions of power and money. And some people seem to think that writer-producer of the X-Men franchise, and now director, Simon Kinberg, fits that bill. And I would have to say that I'm one of those people that kind of agrees with that. And so as we look back at Dark Phoenix as the end of the Fox film franchise, I think it might be worthwhile looking at Simon Kinberg and his contributions to said franchise and how much he may have to blame or get credit for that franchise. You see, a lot of people don't realize Kinberg's been around for a while on the X-Men franchise. In fact, going back to X-Men 3. Yes, X-Men The Last Stand. One of the most reviled of the movies, though I actually think it has some redeeming qualities, but that's neither here nor there. So yes, Simon Kinberg was one of the writers on X-Men The Last Stand, and despite all of the fan backlash to that movie, none of it really seemed to ever rub off on Simon Kinberg. He just kept trucking along. And of course, X-Men Last Stand is not the only comic book superhero movie Kinberg has worked on that's been blasted by both fans and critics alike. Kinberg was a writer and a producer on the famous Fant4stic, the latest Fox attempt at a Fantastic Four movie, which was one of the greatest bombs in comic book movie history. Kinberg was there as a writer and producer, and while of course some of that production's troubles were from the director and some studio meddling, Kinberg was there approving drafts and including his own rewrites as well. So he knew what he was going into at the beginning of that production. And so he bears some responsibility as a producer when it's something that they feel that they need to reshoot late in the project. That's something that a writer/producer should anticipate. Script problems that lead to necessary reshoots down the road. A writer/producer should know that going into it so that they can make those adjustments, especially a producer that has such a strong background in screenwriting. Oh, and lest we forget, if you think Simon Kinberg has avoided any accountability for X-Men Last Stand, wait till you remember the fact that he worked on the original Fantastic Four movies. Yes, back in the day, Simon Kinberg was a script doctor that worked on, I believe, both of the first two Fantastic Four movies. Both of which are incredibly flawed productions and have very broad and not top-notch scripts. So if you're the script doctor, Mr. Kinberg, you did not bring enough sutures, apparently, into the job. And yet, because he was uncredited on that, a lot of people don't realize that and don't realize his contributions to the first two Fantastic Four movies. And don't forget, as one of the team of writers Disney has for Star Wars, Kinberg was integral in setting up the story and plot basics that went on to become Star Wars Rogue One. Yet another project that ended up deeming to have serious problems with the narrative, enough so that they did major rewrites, jumbled up that movie, and because it was perhaps a little bit rushed because of that, was a good movie, but a little bit of a jumbled mess narratively because of the mixtures of the original story designs mixed with the reshoots cobbled together at the end of the production. So again, someone who was involved in setting up the story archetype there, or the story architecture rather, walked away without any, blowback from his job in not quite setting up that story. I mean, there's a pattern of several movies where the broad strokes that the writer and producer should be responsible for, he skirts accountability for. And, then that brings us up to current date, where he ends up starting with First Class, which was actually a good movie he was involved in as a producer, and then taking more and more control over the next several X-Men movies, kind of culminating in writing the script for X-Men Apocalypse, which is generally reviled. Not the worst comic book movie ever made, but not good at all. And then, failing upwards, he gets promoted to be director of the following movie. Not just writer, but writer-director. So I think it's just interesting to note the man's career. I have no ill will. He's actually done some good work. He's worked on the acclaimed Star Wars Rebels cartoon. But I really wonder, there are definitely some creative crimes that I think he has to answer for. I mean, one, if you think about it right off the bat, is the complete mishandling and missed opportunity with the character of Storm, which is especially egregious in this trilogy. It's, well, now quadrilogy. It's especially egregious because Storm had been given such short shrift in the first trilogy, and they got a second crack at the character, but they cast a minor, at least in the first movie, it was a minor role. They cast a minor actress, up-and-coming actress, and apparently because of that, they were people like Kinberg, who was writing the scripts, was too enamored with the big stars, the McAvoys, the Fassbenders, the J-Laws, and you never really saw any development of some of these lesser characters in their franchise, but are very major characters in the comics and to the fans, such as Storm. So I think that shows a little bit of Kinberg's failings as far as a little bit of a shallow approach sometimes. I think his kind of pinnacle was Days of Future Past, though I consider that a fantastic movie and a fun X-Men movie, but also a very, very poor adaptation of the source material on several levels. It's a little bit baffling, but it was a great movie, so a lot of people overlook that. But I'll be doing some analysis of that in upcoming videos. So if that sounds interesting, make sure you subscribe so you can check it out, and consider giving us a like and or a comment below. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Hero Journalism.